All right, and we are back here on the GSMC football podcast. And for the fourth part of the show, we are going to talk about Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni and what a Super Bowl win for them would mean for their legacies, their careers. It would be huge. It would be huge. And obviously, that's the easy answer because you go back to, really last year, and it kind of trickled into the beginning of the year. Just all the drama that kind of surrounded the Eagles and how, Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni, they weren't on great terms. And it just seemed like that relationship was really going south. But, Nick Sirianni has really talked up Jalen Hurts, and he's defended him. And I think the relationship is in a good place. It's in a much better place now. But that's because the Eagles also, had a very good year, and now they are on the doorsteps of a Super Bowl championship if they can knock off the Chiefs here. And I think this would be big for both of these guys because, not just because of the whole relationship thing, but just them individually. Because you had, um, the Eagles collapsed last season, and I mean, I saw some of the worst tackling ever in that playoff game against the Bucs. The season ended rough, and a lot of people were calling for Nick Sirianni's job. And, Jalen Hurts still faces criticism too. But, you know, Nick Sirianni has made the playoffs every single year that he's been a head coach. Now, I might not be the biggest Nick Sirianni fan because of the antics on the sidelines and whatever. But you know what? I'm going to give him credit where credit is due. Because he has made the playoffs every year that he's been a head coach. And this team wins. This team wins a lot of games with him as the head coach. Regardless of you think if he's a good head coach or not, this team wins games with him at the helm. And last year, they brought in a couple of guys that just weren't ready to be coordinators. You went from 2022 where you had Jonathan Gannon and you had Shane Steichen as your coordinators, and you went to the Super Bowl. Then last year, their coordinators were not as good. And then this year, you bring in two veteran coordinators like Kellen Moore. Well, like Kellen Moore, but you bring in Kellen Moore, you bring in Vic Fangio. Now, Kellen Moore might be leaving. He might be possibly taking the Saints job. But still, you bring in those guys, and it's worked. Now, the beginning of the year, it got off to a little bit of a rough start. The defense wasn't playing great, but they really gelled. They came together, and this team all of a sudden turned into one of the best teams in football. And I think that a Super Bowl championship for Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts, it'll wipe away at least a lot, at least some of the criticism. Because, once, something goes wrong again, then you know that people are going to have something to say. But this would definitely be big for both guys because, you win a Super Bowl championship, they can't take that away from you. They can't. If Nick Sirianni is hoisting up that Lombardi trophy, he is a Super Bowl champion. You can't take that away from him. Regardless if you think he's a good head coach or not. This Eagles team has a lot of talent. The Eagles team had a lot of talent last year, and look what happened. They turned it around. You can't take that away from him if he's able to knock. And especially, think about this, though. They would have beaten the team that was going for a three-peat. They would have beaten a team that very few people have been able to do. There's only been two guys that have been able to do it. Two teams. Well, three teams, technically. But two of them were involved the same starting quarterback. Just different setting. They would be put in an elite class. They would be put with the Joe Burrow's Bengals. They would be put with the Tom Brady's Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Tom Brady's New England Patriots. That's it. Those are the only teams that have not. Those are the only players. Those are the only teams that have been able to knock off Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. You would be put in that same conversation. Your team. So this would be big. This would be big. And Jalen Hurts has received criticism, like I said, just because at times, maybe he doesn't show it in the stat sheet. Because he's had some games where, he doesn't throw for a ton of yards. But you know what? When you have this dynamic of a running game with Saquon Barkley, and I've said it over and over again, why are you going to go away from that? And you know what? Jalen Hurts did play well in the NFC Championship game against the Commanders. And, he made plays when he had to against the Rams as well. Made plays when he had to against the Packers. Also, the Eagles' defense really played well in that game. But as long as they're winning, who cares? And I think Jalen Hurts is a solid quarterback. And I know that you could say, well, look at what he has surrounding him. He's got the best offensive line. He's got, Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert. Now he's got Saquon. He's got everything. But I always say this. Don't you want to surround your quarterback with as much talent as possible? We could have the same conversation about Brock Purdy. Like, Brock Purdy is surrounded by the Avengers team. But you want to surround your quarterback with talent so he could be successful. Not every quarterback is going to be, Patrick Mahomes. Not every quarterback is going to be, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, where you could elevate the talent around you. And I think Jalen Hurts is one of those guys where, yeah, he needs as much talent as possible. And at some point, Jalen Hurts is not going to have his legs. And that goes for a lot of guys in the NFL. So you want to make sure that you sustain that talent around him because, at some point, yeah, you're going to have to just be able to throw from the pocket. But that's down the line. We're talking about right now. And this would just be a huge win for both of them. Because like I said, they receive a ton of criticism. A ton. And believe me, I'm one of those people. Going back to last year, when things just fell apart. But I did say going into the year, I may have criticized them. And I may have been one of those people that says, yeah, I'd like to see this passing game get it going. And they have gotten it going in certain games, when they need to. And I think this is going to be a game where they're really going to need to get it going. But I also did say going into the year that I believed that this Eagles team was going to be similar to what we got a couple years ago. And I think this Eagles team might be better than the team that we saw a couple years ago. Because I liked what they did this offseason. I thought the Barkley move was really going to help them, and it has in more ways than one. Just because look at the year that he had. They have a very good chance of winning this game. And it's tough for me to pick the game. Now, I'm still leaning one way because it's the way I leaned at the beginning of the year. And I'm going to continue to do that. But if I didn't have the Chiefs going into the year, I'd probably lean towards the Eagles winning this game. Or pick them. I think this game is dead even. I think these teams are evenly matched. And it's going to come down to possibly the last possession. And it would not surprise me if the Eagles win because they have so much talent on this team. And they are a well-run organization. They got a great GM, head coach. All he does is win, and you got a lot of talent on this team. They're a well-run organization. And they've been to a Super Bowl. Now they've been to the Super Bowl twice in the last couple of years. And, yeah, it's been a little bit, but they did make a Super Bowl 8 years ago. 7 years ago, technically. And they won that with the backup quarterback. Against Tom Brady. And Tom Brady threw for 500 yards in that game. So if the Eagles can win that kind of a Super Bowl, they could definitely win this one. I believe that. But like I said, only time will tell. I'm excited for this game. Now, as a Giant fan, do I want to see the Eagles win? Not necessarily. Because, being a Giant fan, you don't want to see your division rival win. But if they win, is it the worst thing in the world? No. I've seen the Eagles win before. Now, if the Cowboys were in the Super Bowl, whenever that day comes, I'm going to be scared of what happens if they win. Because it's just been so long. Well, first they got to get to a conference championship game. And then to the Super Bowl. Because they have not been able to do that. But, like I said, I've seen the Eagles win. So I know, I've been down this road before. And if you remember, with that Super Bowl against the Patriots, they prevented the Patriots from three-peating. Tom Brady had, we'd probably say the Super Bowl against the Falcons was the better performance just because of the degree of difficulty They were down and then they came back. But Tom Brady, I mean, I think in terms of his individual performance, he threw for over 500 yards in that game, and the Eagles still won. They stopped the Patriots from three-peating. The Patriots won in 2018 and then, of course, 2016, the year before that, the year before the Eagles winning. So now the Eagles have a chance to end another three-peat. And how big would that be? Now, obviously, most of the players from that 2017 team are gone. Brandon Graham is still there. Lane Johnson's still there. And he recently said that he's not retiring. I guess there's some speculation on him retiring. He's not going to retire. But it's going to be interesting. And it would be quite the story if the Eagles are able to knock off the Chiefs and prevent yet another team from three-peating. Now, the Patriots didn't have a chance to three-peat. Obviously because they did it in between the two. But still, had the Eagles lost that, the Patriots would have three-peated. And now going in, the Chiefs, they have the legitimate chance to three-peat. We didn't know after the Eagles beat the Patriots that, the Patriots would get back to the Super Bowl and win it again. Here, the Chiefs, if they win, they three-peat. So, the Eagles, let's see if they can knock them off this time around. But it would be huge, for the legacies of these two guys, Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts. And let's see if they get it done. So we are going to take our final break of the show now. And then when we come back, we will talk about Chris Canty's comments that he made about Joe Burrow. And is he an elite quarterback? Is he not an elite quarterback? Does Chris Canty have some validity to what he was saying? Let's get in. We'll get into that when we come back from our final break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.